All right, welcome back. I just want to clarify one comment that was made about the resources coming from the NEDC that would help with improving, your infrastructure, the roads and everything. It is not a matching program. If the local community puts in dollars to match what we provide, that's a plus, but it is not a prerequisite or requirement for the program. So that is not something that we want the citizens or the communities to have to worry about, because the strategic site readiness program is not meant to be a matching program from the locals. This program was developed because we know that our communities do not have the resources to upgrade their properties or their infrastructure or roads. So this is not a matching program. So I just wanted to clarify that before we continue on.
Okay. I want to say, first of all, thanks to the speaker. You did a terrific job. You laid it out well. I mean, there is economic opportunities that presented to us. Great job. I think that's why we moved from the questions to the comments so quickly. Okay, it was a real quick transition. And to other people that participated here, I'm not 30, I'm not 40, and I'm not a lifelong resident. Okay, I represent the other side of that conversation. We moved here about 3.5 years ago from Oakland County. We moved here to Durand. We absolutely we found what we were looking for. Left Oakland County, which was a great economic opportunity, but it's also that's what takes us out of Oakland County to come here. I can tell you, we bought our house. I felt like this is where we're going to stay for the rest of our life. The idea of living across the street, literally, from an industrial park, not what we had. Again, I'm speaking just for myself. I don't know how many other people may be in this room that are in the same position or have the same feelings that I have. This is a long time. I just want to make my comments. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment on that as well. I just retired 3 years ago to Durand, 43 years of automotive supplier. I've lived in Warren, city of Warren, and I want to quiet solitude in agriculture. I don't mind following a harvester or a tractor around rather than I'm attracted to the community and the agriculture. But I do have two serious questions. One, about someone, Project Kill, 100% dead, gone, and buried.
As of right now, speaking as the mayor, I haven't heard anything on Project Kill.
Okay, so we do not say it's 100% dead.
I can't literally say it's 100% dead, but I was against Project Kill.
And I'm not asking your opinion. I just want to.
I'll tell you, I'm pretty sure it's 99.9%.
Okay. My second question is, that tract of land for Project Kill was pretty sizable. What size was that? How many acres roughly?
I remember right, it was a mile and a half square or mile and a half by a half mile square.
Okay, and what size is this project that we're talking about now?
We don't know yet.
We don't know.
That's why.
It's not a designated piece of property, one area, that's it.
Hold on. I'm going to answer your question. At the meeting, township, Upton, or for the board here, we went and visited Marshall. We seen what they did. Then we were having some more meetings, and I said, look, let's get the public involved. Just in the fact, we don't know what project's coming. There's nothing permanent. We're not even ready yet. And our infrastructure's got to get improved. So we all sat together in the meetings. We said, I spoke up and I said, we got to get Vernon Township, Village 11, and the city of Durand all together. Master plans, we all got to come together and work for something if we want something out there. So I said, let's have meetings with the public, get what their opinion is, get feedback. Township's going to be sending out surveys. We're gonna send out surveys too, but we don't know what project's here, we're just trying to get ready to the project come. But I mean, you know, I know you moved here, I moved from Detroit. I got good rides. Up here, I've been up here since 1970. So this is a nice community. I hear people saying about the railroad track coming into Durand. We have no control over the railroad track. That is federal, that is not Durand. We hear about people who are dumping wastewater every time it rains. It's not just the city that's overflowing. It's drains all around that's saturating the water. So we are trying to improve our wastewater treatment plant. We're spending tax dollars, tax money that the people to pay to fix that. We are fixing that problem. Trust me, when you have this much rain, that's gonna happen. I don't wanna pollute the water. We're not trying to pollute anything. But we just want to be ready if the project comes here. I don't want solar. I'm going to tell you right now, I've answered Facebook and stuff. Don't do everything on Facebook because there's no solar panels going there. There's no windmills going there, and there's no steel pipe. So, get your question. I started.
Jump on that.
No, that's fine. You answered most of the questions. If I'm allowed, I'd like to ask another question or make a comment at least. Thinking about a project like that, wherever it might be, that may only be one possibility. There's other, I understand there's a housing project or housing or something. I would think you need to work very closely with the state of Michigan for them to say, yes, we're interested in this area, you have the land, some infrastructure, you need to get it all developed. And I'll give you an example, North Carolina, South Carolina, you're all familiar, maybe you're not, probably. BMW plant, Mercedes plants, Subaru plant, I think is out there. They spent probably 8, 10, 12 years developing those tracts of land. They literally put in tracts of land with roads, infrastructure, water, sewer, electric. When they got that all developed, at that point they started to sell those to BMW and Mercedes. They bought into it, built plants, and then automotive put satellite of all of their suppliers around those big huge plants. That's how they grow the business. A little town like Durand, Vernon, you don't have the money to finance, develop all this. State of Michigan has to come forward and say, this is what we want to do. This is one of the areas we want to do it. And get the money available, develop it, and then sell it. Sell the idea.
This is what we want to do with your permission.
So, and on the permission part, I think something you touched on that's important is this is not a done deal. You don't have to put anything on that piece of land. This is us as a community get to decide if we want to do it, what we might want to do. Not a what we want to do with it. It's a if we want to, and then.
And I promise this is my last one. Before I moved here 3 years ago, I heard about Project Tim. That piqued my interest because I was a buyer, senior buyer, automotive, steel, plastic resins. Steel plant is really a serious, very serious operation. Project Tim, to me, looking at it 2 years before I came here, was kind of a quiet project, kind of a private project. I never could get information. Carl here lives a few blocks away from me. I knew him before I moved here. He gave me a lot of information. He went to some of the meetings. The meetings were so private. Nobody knew what the heck was going on. I would hope that going forward, every one of these in this community invited and brought in first level, no little side room deals, things like that.
That's what we're doing.
Transparency is exactly.
Just a quick question, that's all I think he had brought up, real quick. We understand the proposal, okay, that if we've got, properties that maybe we want to go ahead and build something on the answer to. That property that we're talking about, Durand, Brown, Woodall, Atlantic, has that already been decided? That is going to be designated in both industrial. That today, tomorrow, 5 years from now, 2 years, 10 years, whatever, that is going to be an industrial park.
That's part of the conversation. The Durand City Master Plan does have that area listed as industrial, as of a couple years ago, but it's not the city's plan. You can't really zone it. There's a bunch of issues with county zoning, with Vernon Township zoning, that we have to get together, and that's the start of this today. Try to get together and figure out what we want to do, if we want to do it all, and if we do, then we have to work on those.
So it hasn't been fully resolved.
As far as
We're in a planning stage, that's how we're going to, we had this meeting. Yeah, just enough, all said, let's bring, I know, I heard about private kids too, and I go, wow. And like, anything, they say, we're gonna have more people doing, we up front, grant. They're gonna help you. And
We have the gentleman in the burgundy shirt.
Yeah, I talk, all of this proactive sounds wonderful, but I have never, ever seen proactive. It would be to our advantage to not have some huge anything downtown expression. But to gradually get industry with 40 to 50 jobs, the size of Simplicity Engineering, Great Lakes Fusion, gradually bring them in and upgrade before they build the plants, but as it happens, that would be good growth for this.
And that is an option for you guys to consider, and obviously we're representing an opportunity for this large scale demand side that's there. But anyway, I mean, it's up to you guys to choose what you want. I think there's those opportunities probably there as well. They're gonna take a little longer. They're gonna look a little bit different in terms of the type of jobs they're gonna create. Might be a little bit more logistics oriented, which right, nothing wrong with that, but has its own implications. But I 100% think, right, it's only a matter of time before others come knocking at your door, right? Saying, hey, this is a great location, right? It's a great community, got a lot of great assets. You guys need to plan for that, right? It will be happening.
Remember, these people even said it right at the beginning, that the areas that they're talking about, Lansing Road and Brown Road and Durand Road, they didn't say anything about how far north they're going, but I was under the impression it was Goodall Road. They also said it's not limited to that area. The other thing that I do have to say is if you do invite someone to come here, things don't really work out, you cannot uninvite them. Uninvite them and tell them to go home. That's all I'm going to say for now.
You know, I don't want to throw, I appreciate this going to be great to hear voices here. But, you know, I'm reminded of a situation that happened, probably may have also heard about. The largest electronic supplier ever, Foxconn, got a huge tax abatement in Wisconsin between two small communities, to 2,500 acres. And they started basically doing something people look. So you said something about there be no matching requirements. Well, hey, that's great. Here does need to be the state to come in, do that without sending us an invoice. Definitely big plus. I agree with the other comments too. Get the infrastructure in place, and like you said, then just sell it. See what kind of industry best fit.
That's a really great comment, and there are numerous examples of failed projects both in the U.S. and globally, so I think that's a fair assessment. One thing that is unique in the U.S. is every state's tax structure is slightly different. So as you mentioned, in Wisconsin, actually, there's really big abatement. In Michigan, it doesn't work that way. So with an abatement, it's always on future investment. So you get, Public Act 198 of 1972 investment is 50% of future investment on real property. So if they build nothing, they get nothing. If they expand on their property, they're still paying for the existing structure. They get an abatement on the new structure. So there are some safeguards just in the tax law that I think help us in Michigan to mitigate some of those risks, right? Because I think we talked a lot about perceived risks from a customer's perspective, a company. Like, well, risk here is population or infrastructure or whatever. But there's risk too to the community, and we want to be really sensitive to that. So we want to put in place, you know, the first question of the evening was about, you know, how many of these companies are for and whatever. That's really where I focus for my team in finding new investors. You know, one example I like to use on abatements is you get half of something on a P188 or all of nothing. Because without the abatement, you're not going to be as competitive as a neighboring community. So you're likely not getting that investment. But if you do get the abatement, and it's a PA198, which is the one that's used for industrial applications, you're going to get half of that new investment as far as taxes, right? So I think it's a really fair question because that Foxconn deal, there's a lot of egg on people's faces up with that, right? Like that was a pretty big blunder. But the way that our tax structures in Michigan is set up, it really protects us in some of those instances.
No?
You two young guys over here.
In the back,
First, I brought my family back here because I didn't want this. One of the things that I have a question about is, have these companies, they're looking for these large industrial sites. And you're looking at communities like ours, where you want to develop agricultural land, we never had. Flint, Detroit, Saginaw, all that is also agricultural land. Large companies, even over 50, 70 years, I'm going to be on that 50-year time ago. They essentially took a giant super fund dump on these cities. I'm looking towards the future of my kids. I'm 40 now, 10, 11, my daughter's 6. In 50, 60 years, I don't want them to go with a super fund site here. The company got a better deal someplace. I mean, I came here for 5 acres, I came back for 5 acres, I came here so they could have safe water, everything else. Why would Michigan develop economic why would they be putting that money into redeveloping those sites that are already contaminated for heavy industrial use? In fact, I know it's hugely expensive, but I don't care. It seems like we are looking for ways to take advantage of rural America and create another zone that they're going to use here. I mean, that's what progress to one person is in different progress. You know, to me, progress is not what I'm talking about stuff now. Back on over, I can go ahead and talk. Progress means getting away from that so I can see the future in my backyard. Business owners listen on all them people and all that business. That's more money for them. 50 months a year, a lot of us don't necessarily care about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that bonds review, right? I mean, look, that does happen, right? I mean, in terms of industry invests for the lifetime, right, of a plant, it's not 100 years, right? Do they reinvest? It becomes a question. GM, I think, right in Southeast Michigan is reinvesting a lot of old plants right now. Not in all, though, right? We saw Flint that, right? I mean, a lot is left than what was originally there. We do spend a lot of time marketing brownfield sites, so redeveloping brownfield sites. There's a lot in Detroit, right, under redevelopment. It's taken a long time to get there, but there's a lot of activity. Flint's got some interesting new things going on too that I think will be out there soon. There's not a brownfield site at this type of scale, though. It really is, unfortunately, if our region wants to compete. Because there's the biggest site in Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb County right now is 500 acres. That's the biggest site, brownfield, greenfield, or otherwise. Again, the only location for this is looking to greenfield sites, and you know, it's a trade-off, 100%. That's why, like I said before, it's looking for the communities that actually see this as part of their vision and want it, right? Not forcing it on anybody, right? And I think that's, we're hearing from you guys, right? A lot of you came here for, right, that different type of lifestyle. We understand that, we appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, I'll just add to that as well. Even with the Michigan Build Ready Sites program, we are not only looking at greenfield sites, we also go out and look at the brownfield sites. And we're utilizing the strategic site readiness program to also get those sites up to code ready for development. So it's not just agricultural land. We work a lot with Racer Trust, who has a lot of GM's old properties under their preview, and we're working with them as well to just identify what else needs to happen at those sites so that we can also get those ready for projects. So it's not just vacant green space. So we do deal with a lot of khaki and a lot of brown as well.
You know, you talk about the recommendation. I would recommend transparency that third party conduct a survey. I'm not saying that I trust people. Better to do it that way. The other part I'd like to talk about is we talk a lot about jobs. No, I hired quite a few people in my career, my job. And really, there's going to be more boots on the ground, there's no doubt about that. Businesses are going to that kind of thing. But as far as Shiawassee County, you know, you have to think that maybe 10–15% of the jobs that are being available probably will go to the residents in this area. Because you are talking training, you're talking a bunch of different stuff. I was the Secretary of Education for 25 years, and I understand how that works. And so, it's a positive when it comes to increasing business in the area. It's not going to offer a whole lot of employment opportunities there.
Yeah, I think that can be very true, right? I think the question is how much do we invest as a community to create those pathways for people here? But yeah, I mean, a large percentage, no matter what, right? If you're talking 1,000+ jobs, right, are likely gonna be people coming into your community. But you can prepare, obviously, for right pathways from high school and beyond for those careers. But it's a lot of work to do that, right? I mean, I don't think we should get ourselves.
That's what I wanted to ask about, was will we be working collaboratively on the survey, or will we you guys and whoever's taking the survey?
Let me just clarify that real quick so that there's no confusion within the room. Vernon Township is currently working on their master plan. We have contracted with McKenna to actually work with us on developing our master plan. Therefore, when we're talking about this parcel of land north, that is Vernon Township property, we are working on a master plan for that, and we are working in conjunction with many different resources on what exactly that's going to look like. Part of that will be McKenna, a third-party company, will be doing a survey of Vernon Township residents. Okay, so I want to make sure that's very clear. Vernon Township residents. I have no idea whether the city of Durand or our speakers or SEDP have another survey going on. But that is what we're talking about when we're talking about the survey. We are working with a third-party company to actually develop our master plan.
The survey is going to be specific to the master plan, not this parcel.
This parcel plan is Vernon Township and is part of our master plan, so it will be included in that, correct?
Yeah, you talk about 1,000 or 2,000 employees like that in one thing. I can see that being a problem. I don't want 1,000 cars going by my 2,000 cars. You know, we bought because of country feel, and that is what we're in.
Good thing. He wants it, okay? Work the right way. Tell somebody it's great. Look, I've seen some disasters like last time, lots of problems. But I will say that, you know, if you want your 10 and 6-year-old to have a life here, jobs are going to be required for different types of business. Okay, that's the key. They're not going to be in any one place. There is no, you know, no silver bullet, 1,000 plans, and not answer that. You know, I do think a proactive plan and looking at and having a look at the future is what I would love for this community. I'd love for my own town to stay the same, but that's not the way it works. You got to figure out how to move with it while you don't lose your identity.
So I have 2,000 cars around my house every day.
Maybe not.
A counterpoint to that, I will say, part of the reason I moved back was Shiawassee County and Durand specifically is great. So you don't necessarily have to have a ton of jobs in this exact area that are good jobs. My wife and I both have good jobs, and we moved here because it's an affordable rural community in a small town that we grew up in. That's what we wanted to say, but not necessarily good. So that's great for some people. Some people might want to work in town, might want a bigger facility, but some might not.
Well, I got a question, I have a question for you guys, just my name is, and maybe Brian. Now, so let's say this industry goes in, over, build 2,000, build all these houses and stuff. Now, for Durand itself, we consider a rural county, or rural city, that's going to change. That means if it changes, everybody in this room, all their insurance is going to go up on the car.
Oh.
I think that,
That I don't know the answer to. That's some kind of automotive insurance designation, I think.
yep.
Yeah.
Rural counties, you get a deduction. If you go to the short street, your insurance goes up $200. So
First time I've heard that question.
So that's the thing, though, that's what I'm saying, if that comes in, I'm not saying, is that gonna change all of that? For title. Right, thing, and I guarantee it, if it changes our title, these people, I'm gonna like. No.
Yes.
All right, so Vernon Township. About 2016, representatives from the city of Durand met in secret with some people at the front row up there and had secret meetings and bought some properties or contracted for some properties in secret. People were told that they would have to go to jail if they talked about it. Now, I lost my trust in my representatives when that happened. And this is the land we're talking about right now that would protect Tim and me. How do you guys gain my trust back that you're interested in doing the right thing, not in secret?
I was elected in 2020, so I wasn't a part of it, but I'll promise you, I'm never gonna sign an NDA with companies. So if you wanna leave me out of the conversation, you guys, if that comes up, go ahead.
There's no secret. Well, that's part of economic development, and it's a strange thing the way that happens. But there was no secret meetings, there was no backdoor meetings, there was no. I didn't sign any.
When nobody knew about it, and our gentleman in charge of the Vernon Township was told he could not speak about it.
Well, that's when, like I said, economic development. I work in an architectural firm. Okay, can you? I didn't interrupt you. Can you please let me speak? I work in an architectural firm. I work with very many developers. And when they come to me, they say, I have this piece of property. Can you see if, say, a restaurant will fit on this? But would you not tell them who it is, what it is, until they get the property bought? Because as soon as you tell everybody what it is, the price just went up. And if you were going to buy a piece of property and the price went up, you'd be kind of not happy. So I didn't sign anything. I was told that we couldn't discuss it because we were asked by the company not to say anything. And again, it's kind of a tricky situation because you have to gain people's trust. Because if you go out and you tell everybody that, say, Lucky Steakhouse is coming, Lucky didn't want me to tell everybody, then you've broken that trust. And we will have no one ever come back and ask to do anything in our community. So again, it's a very
delicate situation. There's some things we can say, some things we're asked not to say. And again, I didn't sign anything.
Okay, right now, no one on this board. Signed any. No one on this board has signed any secret documents. Pardon me?
I'm not saying anything.
Was that you?
I'm not saying it, but the school group that I can't talk about. I decided not to talk about it because it's my business, not yours.
Like I say, how are you gonna win the trust back of these officials? That's why you're here tonight. That's why you people are here tonight. In any other meeting, you will be invited back. We have had transfer. What happened in the past is past. We gotta move forward.
The thing I would add about that is,
The thing I would add real quick is, I mean, everybody here knows once trust is violated, it's hard to get it back, right? That's the way the world works. But a lot of times, what you're dealing with as a community is driven almost exclusively by a potential customer. And it was in that case. That doesn't mean that, the fallout wasn't, damaging, but I think at least you didn't have a Foxconn like they did over in Wisconsin. There's no physical damage. There's no plowing that was done for, dirt road for 2 years and then nothing was built there. You have probably a good lesson learned there. And just remember that the partners, it's two ways, right? They're going to choose you, but you have to choose them too. And I just think there's some good lessons learned from that particular thing. But I can tell you that it was driven almost exclusively by that potential company.
Just to go back to the infrastructure stuff and the monies that are available for that. Let's say the surveys go up, everything comes back, everybody gets together, the city, the township, we all agree, yes, we would like to do something. We don't know what, but we would like to do something and move forward. We've talked about the fact that a lot of this infrastructure stuff needs to be done in advance in order to attract these companies. So what is the time frame? We get everything back, everybody says, yes, we'd like to do something. What is the time frame before, is it 10 years before we could actually see money coming in to do that free infrastructure type work, or is it a year?
A couple of months.
So once everything, if everybody agrees, everybody goes through, it happens fairly quick.
Yes. As a matter of fact, right now, we have already been working with Justin's team just to do surveys on the site to see what's going on in regards to like environmental studies. So those things are already happening. And so once we understand what the community wants to go through, have here, we can then start to put that money toward the infrastructure that is needed based on the industries that you want in your community. So right now, it's safe for us to just do surveys to find out what's going on at the property, because we're gonna have to do that anyway. And it's not going to hinder us from doing anything else. So let's say, you guys come back and you say you don't want anything in industrial purposes on that property. It's still, with those surveys, it's still going to at least help the community. Because even if you build houses there, you're still gonna need that information. So we're not gonna be lost in doing like the surveys that we're doing now. In regards to the infrastructure, if you come back and you say you do want industrial at that property, but maybe you wanna do it in smaller phases, again, for us to come in and utilize that strategic site readiness fund just to get, a portion of the site ready, you're still gonna have to do something with the roads, no matter what. That's a massive site. So
just a little follow-up then, and thank you very much.
Yeah.
But then to the city and the township primarily because you're talking about the master plan. Do we have any type of time frame of how long it takes to write a master plan? I have no clue.
3 to 4 months.
So between these surveys and rewriting the master plan and things like that, you guys could potentially have some type of guidance within a year.
We have already started our process, and we're actually.
And then is the city looking at the same type of update?
And we've already, you know,
Nicole,
I do have a question on the funding.
Yeah.
As we look at Marshall and the progress that they have made, on the basis of that, how much of that was the state of Michigan funding and the community funding? Because I can't see 100% coming from the state, maybe I'm wrong, but give me a percentage, give me dollar amounts, can you do that?
I'd say, with the Marshall property, I'm not sure if the community has put any money on the table for that. So I would like to guesstimate and say 90% was from the state and about 10 was from the community. Because we have invested, with the Marshall site, we've invested on land options, we've invested on infrastructure improvements, we've invested on studies for that site, we brought in engineers to help with that site. And all of those activities came from the site readiness dollars from the state of Michigan. We also utilize some federal dollars. If anyone's familiar with the Community Development Block Grant Program, that comes to the state from the feds. We've also utilized those resources for the Marshall site. So I'd say a little to, maybe 10% came from the community, if that.
And how much is that you've invested in Marshall? Roughly, a lot.
Getting close to about $1 million.
City needs to grow. Years ago, the railroad was busting out. You could look down the street, you could tell who worked for the automotive industry and who worked for the railroad. It was like every other house was one or the other. Now, I don't think there's 9 people in Durand. City of Durand, I mentioned he's having an awful time. The 1,100 people who use the sewer system, they're trying to use that means something, $1 million. Not $500, it's $1 million. People in the township, someone's gonna have to get a sewer system pretty soon. They have problems. The only one they have is Durand. Durand has to grow. No way around it. It's dying. I'm an ex-railroader. My wife's an ex-business. No, you know both sides. It has to happen. Something has to happen. I'm not saying River Rouge. No one wants River Rouge in their backyard. You know, we all know that. We drive over that bridge and we see it. It's pain to hang out white clothes on the line. It's not, it can't happen no more with the environmental protection. People don't understand that. They think they're going to have green smoke all around. Not going to happen. And you just can't convince people. I'm not saying I want it all over, but it's happening. I'm part of the Project 10. I have to, it's the only way to mention it. I'm part of it. If it happens, it happens. I just put up a new pole barn. I don't care if it happens or not. I love my house. But I'm not going to live next door to a 3-story. Oh, I opted in. Not dummies. But Durand needs it. Because pretty soon, they're going to have to figure out how to flip around and get $9 out of one. It's happening today. I'm at city council too, I know. So by now I'm a council person. Anyway, that's my point.
It's happening now. Say whatever we have to fix the cost of the house.
1,200 people.
Yeah. So, and we just fortunately had to raise everybody's water and sewer bill. Now, in order to fix repair the treatment plant, we need money on the state. Unfortunately, no. Leave it alone. And they want us to replace all the lead lines. Except, do it painful. Yeah. So we need
I agree, we need some kind of development. When they say 2, 3, 4,000 jobs, a little bit, I can see smaller projects, maybe,
I'd rather have 15 small projects out there than one big one.
right, and so we need something, because the way we're going right now, we're not sustainable. We need to somehow relieve some of that burden off of residents of the taxes. That's who pays for this. Us. Need some.
Appreciate you guys taking my question. Okay, showing off today. Honestly, I'm really surprised that the last 2 hours we've all sat here saying these no one see stuff that makes us mad. I get a project is shadow, maybe smoke and smog, which is destroy that correct. I am a lifelong resident of Durand. I started a business in photography. I shoot most of the school action stuff. I put countless hours in the fundraisers. And the thing that blows my mind most is that I didn't even ask these guys what options are available. No one has talked about, okay, who here thinks that roads in Durand are awesome? Who here thinks that the sewer system here in Durand is awesome? Who here doesn't want to see better infrastructure? Anybody here want to see a huge industrial complex or some huge building? Awesome. We're all in the same page. We all know what we want in that regards. So you guys are experts. What options are available to us right now that are not going to have some huge aesthetic light on us, that are not going to pollute the sound, so that I can still hear the band that they're playing as I go across the city? Anyone in Durand knows when they fire up. What are going to be the best options for us that are going to fit with what we're all saying over and over and over again? What are these options? And I don't see that house away. I come to you guys and ask, what is it?
Well, I said it earlier and I'll say it again. There are a lot of different things that are happening in this industry. So what's wrong with what about a 300-person electric ATV manufacturer? Right? I mean, that's the type of stuff that's going on right now.
What about outside manufacturing?
Well, what about, I mean, I go back to Marquette. There's 3 medical device companies in the around Marquette that weren't there when I was growing up. Why did they locate there? They're not huge operations. Most of it is research. Some of it's manufacturing. It's very specialized, good paying wages. People come from all over to take those jobs because it's a really nice community. The schools are good. Infrastructure is pretty good. We're still struggling with the roundabouts. I don't know what it is. My brother called me, he's like, there's a roundabout. But this is there are a lot of things that they call it the pipeline. This is what they call the economic development process. Things come in from all over the world, all different types of industries. And the state has sectors that they focus on because we're confident in these. Ag, life sciences, manufacturing, mobility, software. These are focus areas and you should be looking at all of them because you're right. You will turn another light off and another light off. And you all know these are pretty healthy communities when you look around other places. And I hate the Rust Belt term. When you look around Michigan and you drive through, I do a lot of work in Albion. In Albion? Okay. You know, but they're working on it. They're working on a plan to do something different for that community. It's pretty exciting. It's around new energy. These things are all happening, and I think that if you work closely with your local economic development people and your state people, you can find solutions that fit into this community and leverage your assets. And I'll say this one more time. It's all about the talent that lives in the community. That is the overriding equation. You have a 5.5% unemployment rate here, which is actually a little high. Our labor force participation rate in Michigan is 41st in the country. It's incredible. We have people but we don't have them aligned with the right skills to do the jobs that are available. So I'll stop there, but you have a lot of options that are out there, and you need to look at all of them.
And I don't, right, I think it's something that needs to be studied because, right, the customers drive these decisions, right? And they look for different assets, right? E-commerce is different than manufacturing. Technology is different than, right, manufacturing. I think you got to really look at what your assets are, what your workforce looks like. Part of this, right, you got to, how are you cultivating that future workforce, right? I think the more we learn about your stories, the more we understand who you guys want to be, who you want to attract. We can come together and help you guys understand what the options are, right? It's not, we can't sit up here today and say, oh, here's exactly what the solution is, right? It's a collaborative process, but there are options, but I don't want to kid you, right? Like a software company, right? They want to be in downtown Detroit or Ann Arbor because of the University of Michigan or because the density of population in those areas, right? But are there technology-oriented manufacturing where it's half engineers, right, and half, you know, CNC programming? Yeah, I think those are serious options, right, that are available to you guys that are much smaller scale, right, the 50, 100, 200 job opportunities. I think part of this is you have to invite the developers in, right? You got to have the buildings and the space. Everything speeds to market now, right? When a company comes to us, they typically give us 18 months to have a facility up and running, right? If you don't have the land zoned properly, if you don't have the infrastructure there already, you can't make the list, you know? So this is why it's a proactive discussion, but it doesn't have to be the 2,000 person thing, right? We're just saying we have a pain point right now, right? And we're looking for some communities to help us with that, right? But we're willing to spend time with you guys to think beyond that as well.
And when we talk about industrial for us just means that someone is making something. That something can be anything. It could be food processing. It could be cars. It could be, you know, doors. It could be anything. Industrial for us is making something. So you're taking one thing and turning it into something else. So it doesn't have to be just automotive. It doesn't have to be electronic vehicles. It's not dirty anymore either. Some of the, you know, Drew can tell you about some of the requirements that we get hit with when the companies are looking for existing buildings. They want clean buildings. They are now looking for, you know, LEED certified buildings that have, you know, clean energy, and they don't want to dump, you know, chemicals into the river. They want to be a part of the community. So even if, you know, when you're developing your master plan and you have certain, you know, facade that you want companies to have on the outside, you want it to fit into, you know, the look and feel of your community. Those are things that you get to tell companies that want to come to your community. It's not the reverse. So a lot of the communities, a lot of the companies that we're working with, they want to be a part of the community, not disrupt it. So that is one thing that you should understand as well. And industrial is everything you can think of. Like Glenn said, it's medical devices. So creating, you know, things for the healthcare. That to us is industrial because you're making something. As long as they're making something and they're doing it on whatever site that you want to zone industrial, these resources are available.
That's what we about putting a new ramp up on the road.
I don't think
That doesn't say, this lady right here looking at me here.
I think that's all part,
I don't know if a lot of people know about that extra ramp.
I think it's all part of the development. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the process. You know, if that large of a development, if that's what the community wants, and that's what that development needs to do that, yes, I think MDOT is prepared to do that. But if that's not what the community wants in its smaller developments, then no, that's not going to happen. So.
It all depends on the truck traffic or the traffic of the people coming in and out of what MDOT is going to do around that site. So if it is a large project that's coming that has, 1,500 employees and they have so many trucks coming in and out. That is part of that proactive discussion that we're having with MDOT to get to understand what needs to change, in regards to the roads, the highway. And then also when we're talking to the developers, there's also things that we do around the site that have buffers so that you don't hear. There's creative things that, developers do with trees. There's creative, walls soundproof walls that they can put up. So there's, things that we can talk about, especially when we start to talk about the construction, and what needs to happen at that site. That's why we like to get in before we have a project, so that we can start to maneuver what needs to happen and get some of those timelines. So MDOT will come in and they'll do a traffic study, and then they will tell us, okay, if you are using this hypothetical project for this site, here's the plan, and this is how long it's going to take, and this is how much it's going to cost. So we'll know, okay, in order to put in a new interchange, it's going to take 18 months, which includes planning, getting the budget together, and then constructing. So we can take that and put it into a project that comes, and we know that this will fit in our timeline. Funds will already be set aside. So all of this, a lot of it runs concurrently while we're trying to, get this site ready for whatever project is done.
I have a question real quick, on regards to doing all ramp and stuff like that. I personally spoke to brokers. Everybody in here right now can say the same thing I will say. Anything in Durand Road, 90% of the time, people won't stop. Right to that stop sign. Won't stop. I asked the road commission several times. I said, we're going to get a stop light put there to save people. Their response to me was, well, we did a survey. There hasn't been any major accidents, so we're not going to go on there. Flash light. When there's an accident on 69, they get off the Durand Road, they go right there. I want semi trucks go through, I see cars go through, I see motorcycles go through. Everybody here has seen somebody go through that stop sign.
That's county though.
That's county though. And we're just a little town trying to save our people. Okay? If something goes in behind grab, is that going to be assessed with that? Correct. Good question. I'm curious.
Those are the projects and opportunities and whatnot. It's been a long night. Going back to your comment, what opportunities are there? Obviously this conversation was framed around really big transformational, yada, yada, yada. We work on deals all the time that are one job, right? First employee from a California tech company moving to Michigan to access the market, or MIT spin out, or a project that came from Canada with a lot of Canadian investment, just as the location is adjacent. I think there's a whole host of opportunities in different industries, different size scales. And obviously we started talking here because from an aerial image, we can see the product, right? It's massive. What fits the field, the look test, the sniff test of a big deal. The community says, we don't want a big deal. We want what we can chew on, a little smaller bite than that. We can right size opportunities that we have in our pipeline in this community. You're saying, we want something that's a 200 job that we can digest first. That's okay. All I need to know, in my team, the pipeline that we're looking at is where can we put this? Because it doesn't matter how big my pipeline grows, how many billions of dollars we have percolating. We can't put them here. We've got one deal. We've got one lane, right? So I've not been offended by any of the comments except one. There was a comment earlier, but I love the opportunity to understand what a community is feeling. My parents lived in a bicentennial farm. They lost it when they paved that road, right? Because they moved to a dirt road because they always lived in town. But you can have both as well. You look at communities like Holland, right? Obviously larger in scale, but they're known for Tulip Festival. We just invested a $1.7 billion battery plant expansion in Holland, right? So it doesn't have to be, if we do this, we're going to lose our image or our history. If we do this, we can't do this. If you can do both things, That's why these conversations are so critically important. You don't want to do something that's going to jeopardize the other. But you do want to do something that's going to complement what you already have, right? You have great infrastructure, you have a great history of manufacturing these things, you have great access to the Blue Water Bridge and Flint and Lansing. We just invested $2.6 billion in a battery plant in Lansing. That's 43 minutes away from here. I just drove there before this meeting. On my way from Albion, which was like been all over. That's within the workshed of that plant. So maybe we don't need a battery plant here, but like what part of that supply chain fits this community that we can prep, because we're getting those calls. We're getting electrolyte manufacturers, we're getting atom cathodes, we're getting film separators, we're getting patch shells, plastic companies. The list goes on, because it's not just a mega plant. There's 50 job up to 500 job scale that have to complement what's already here. So it can be really concerning. You know, I mentioned earlier, like my dad, my brother, my uncle, my grandpa, all worked at the Ross Port plant. But we lived in Livingston County, 45 minutes away, because similar, I think, to what we've all heard today, we wanted both. We can do that in this community in different ways. It has to be through communication and open dialogue, strategic planning, making sure that we're getting all those inputs. But I think a lot of the messaging has been said as well, is if you don't do anything, that's probably not an option. There has to be a collective voice where the community comes together and figure out what do we want to be. Work with your leadership, because if I call Justin and say, I've got this big deal, and he calls the mayor or the supervisor and they say, we're not interested, I'm not going to source the deal here. It's not worth my time, it's not worth my customer's time. Right? So like trust us that like I don't have the authority as a home rule state to shove anything down this community. I can ask, and I can ask way more often than you'd like me to. But I have no shame, and I would be told no 99 times. That's fine. That's fine with me. But I can't do it without the pressing of that.
There's a Pacific Island, until the late 80s, early 90s, one place more resource. Good resource for outbound everywhere. Farmers, being agriculture, you gotta have nitrates out there. But when Norwood was setting up and they were mining out their land, they set up a trust. With that source was not going to last forever. So to the council, what type of opportunities might be available with a project like this? We're setting up some type of subsidy for the public, or some type of trust, or some other type of community benefit where we can see not just the infrastructure, but actual tangible benefits to having a project like this in our program.
I'd like to just add, we're going through the Township Planning Commission. I love what we're doing, but we're going through plow ground over and over. And want the residents to come to the Planning Commission with their thoughts and ideas, and we'll be working with the Michigan Economic and Wisconsin Economic to do that. And Drew, I love what you're doing, but you're talking to that side of the room. Some of us farmers are getting impaired hearing, so we're not getting the question and right answers. So I mean, frankly, I think it's great participation tonight. Got a lot of things that we've heard, but we are going through a process, and there's so many opportunities that we can pick and choose. But how can Nicole tell the city of Durand, we're going to get you a sewage system that's going to handle a 10,000 employee kind of plant when we want a 500 kind of a plant? So until we get things in place, get some direction for these wonderful people up here, where I said there's a lot of suppositions, but it's going to be an open process, I guess is what I want to assure everybody that people will have their opportunity. I don't want 90-person capacity hall filled up with people want to hang somebody from the Planning Commission. And say, you guys can represent us. We are going to represent us, and we're going to work very closely with Justin and also with the Michigan Economic and Detroit Economic Development people to try to come up with something that's going to fit, that's going to give us the right growth that you as residents, you as the taxpayers are really looking for. Because we've got some resources, we've got great talent to go forward. Let us work through it. This is just a first meeting, and You've done a great job, everybody, laying out.
Let me take 1 second, to address. It's a absolutely stunning question, very well thought out and very educated, so thank you for that. I think it's too early to ask that question. But I think it's a question that moving forward needs to be forefront for our communities, and it's something that maybe we need to, as we're moving forward and looking at the various options, it's something that we need to keep in our mind, and I don't think that anybody here actually probably ever thought of that question. Wonderful question. But it all is going to depend on what we decide to do, if anything, with that. And answer that question for you in a reasonable manner that would allow you to have a good answer, or anybody in this room to have a good answer. So I wanted you to have that.
That's fair, I appreciate it.
Right here.
First off, I want to let the young people know that I respect it. I truly do. I have grandkids that have grown up here in Durand. On the Hallmark. I had to close the Hallmark store because young people didn't shop with me. My lovable, and I miss them so much, elderly people couldn't afford to constantly come in there and shop. Because the young people would tell me, I work outside of Durand, I look in the big city, work in the big city, I'm gonna shop at the stores there. Okay? They do. So, my thing is to you guys, I have a 24-year-old grandson that graduated from here, moved to Lansing because he says, Nana, there's nothing in Durand for me. There's no job for me here. I have two 17-year-old granddaughters, one's graduating this year, one's going to graduate next year. They're going to move out of here because there's nothing for them here. So no matter what we do, we have to grow. Durand has to grow. Like they said before, it doesn't have to be anything big. We just need to get out of the nuts down underneath the ground, come out of that hole, and see what the future's bright for us. I'm 66 almost years old. Am I going to be here? I'm going to be here forever. I know I'm not going to. But my grandkids can be back here. I don't know if you have children or not, but you're going to, I hope, to let this country grow or this city grow. So that's what it's all about. My grandkids, they raise cows, they raise lambs, they raise pigs, they're heavy into FFA. They're little mini farmers, and they love it. One of my granddaughters is going to go be a veterinarian. She's going to leave from here because what's around her? You know, she wants to do the large animals. So that's what I'm trying to say is, we've got to look at these young people that are here. Where are their kids? Where are all your kids that are going to graduate or grandkids that are going to graduate? Where are they going to go to? They're going to move. Wait a minute, I listen to you. No, they're going to move out of here. And then where's Durand going to go? Because you didn't want to grow. Yeah, in that project you're at, I love my home. You know what? If it means having to sell and have both come to this town, money come to this town, and another Hallmark come into this town, that's what I'm for. Durand is downtown.
With the, 1 second here, with the essence of time, I would just like to say, I mean, I'll leave it to the local governments to adjourn the meeting, but our panel has traveled a long ways to get here. And I'd like to give them the opportunity to go back home. It's after 9 o'clock now. So I'm sure this is the first community meeting of many. And I want to thank everybody for coming here. I want to thank our panel for coming here and answering our questions tonight. I especially want to thank Vernon Township and the city of Durand for coming together and realizing that we need to include the community. We need to bring this all together. You know, they have been the ones that have initiated this meeting to get the community engagement so that we can move forward. So I just want to thank everybody for that. But I would like to cut the questions for the panel so they can get back home.